Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Or I guess you could say these days, focused on exposing everything the media won't tell you relating to this tariff conversation. You know, it's clear the media is trying to undermine the White House's message. And really, they're trying to paint the situation as black and white, oversimplifying the topic, and basically bringing it back to the core component of how they cover Trump. Orange man bad. But the reality is there's a lot of moving pieces here. There's a lot going on. The story they're trying to sell is that Donald Trump sucks and doesn't know what he's doing. But the reality is there's something much bigger at play here. And most of the media is either too dishonest or too stupid to acknowledge it. Donald Trump isn't just playing economic hardball with these tariffs. It's not just about being a big bully on the world stage. I truly believe that Donald Trump is swinging for the fences. And at the end of the day, he's trying to totally reshape the foundation of how America operates. It's not just about tariffs and trade imbalances. You know, there's a reason why he called it Liberation Day. It's aptly named because Donald Trump's true goal is here, the true play, is to eliminate income taxes, at least starting for those making less than $150,000 a year. Again, let's continue to have the conversation that the media is so purposely ignoring. But before we get into any of it, this video is actually brought to you guys by a sponsor, so let's play that clip. This video is brought to you by Raycon. Folks, you know we live in a fast-paced world these days, and increasingly so, and with so much going on around us, it's important to stay tuned in into what's going on. To do this effectively, you need the right gear, and that's where I'm here to offer you guys. For me, one of the most reliable tool that I've had, well, it's my Raycon Everyday Earbuds. I use these almost every single day, whether I'm at the gym or now as a brand new father trying to save my eardrums as my newborn baby is throwing an absolute fit. I got these bad boys locked in and I'm listening to podcasts, listening to the news, and that's why I'm personally pitching them to you. Folks, very simply, these are the best earbuds I've ever had. We're talking top tier sound quality, active noise cancellation that keeps you locked in, touch controls, multi-point connectivity, and on top of all of that, they've got 32 hours of battery life. Oh, and I guess the cherry on top, they fit my ears well, and they look great. And of course, the absolute best part is all the quality, no compromise, at a fraction of the price of other premium earbuds on the market. So what are you guys waiting for? Go get yourself a pair of Raycon Everyday Earbuds and take advantage of this exclusive offer. Raycon is offering you up to 20% off site-wide by simply clicking the link down below in the description. Head over to buyraycon.com/hivemind, click the link below and claim your discount. Trust me, you won't regret it. A huge thank you to Raycon for being the channel's longest running sponsor. Now back to the video. Alright folks, so like I said, you know, there's so much going on with these tariffs, it's kind of hard to keep up, to be honest. Every single day feels like a new angle, a new talking point, a new meltdown from the left. And of course, like I mentioned in the intro, the media just wants to dumb the conversation down. Orange man bad, but it's really not that simple. What Donald Trump is trying to do here is actually multifaceted. And what I think it all boils down to is Trump and his team are attempting to push the envelope as far as they possibly can. They're testing the system, seeing just how far they can go. How much leverage can they apply? How much pressure can they apply? And of course, the core component there is how much can they extract from other countries that have taken advantage of America for decades? You know, Mazie Hirono said this the other day.
The fact that he's pausing these tariffs is that he didn't really have a plan. It's like a rolling of the dice and a crapshoot. And where's the plan? What is the goal here except to create a lot of chaos, uncertainty, and fear? And that's what's happening.
Do you fear that they could be re-implemented if these countries don't commit to?
Look, if he really wants to have a plan, but you know what? One uses tariffs in a much more focused way, not the way he's doing it, like, oh, 100 countries, sure, why not? He just wants to extort what he can from countries, from law schools, from universities, from law firms. That's what he does.
Trump is trying to extort what he can out of other countries. And she said that as if it was a bad thing. But just ask yourself, why shouldn't he? I mean, every other country seems to be doing what's best for their people. Every other country seems to be trying to extort as much as they can out of America. But at the end of the day, I find it's a poor choice of words. It's not extortion. It's called deal making. And you know, there's many layers to this deal. I still genuinely believe it's about reshoring jobs. It's about opening foreign markets. It's about isolating and exposing China. But I think there's also a much bigger, almost revolutionary idea underneath it all, shifting the tax burden off the American working and middle class.
What they said is there's going to be these price shocks. So year one is difficult, okay? But it could raise upwards of $750 billion a year.
You're saying tariffs.
What they said that they would do is they would then turn around and cut the federal
income tax
for anybody making $150,000 or less to zero.
So what they're doing is using the tariffs to offset the price shock. And this is the math, and that hasn't been 100% established yet, but instead of like putting the burden on the American consumer, we put the burden on the foreign country to pay that delta.
And then effectively subsidize the consumer through an income tax.
To be fair, the $750 billion, I assume, that's assuming everybody pays the tariff fully.
Yeah, so this is an important point. I would say right now it's a moving target, meaning the sharps before Liberation Day, the smart money line was at like 250 billion. And part of why the stock market went berserk was they just got it totally wrong. And the back of the envelope math that I did and that a couple of my friends did, they got to 750. I got to 750 as well. Howard Lutnick, who's a commerce secretary, said like anywhere approaching 750, we have a line of sight to be able to cut income taxes to zero for anybody making 150 or less.
Oof.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's part of Trump's long-term goal, replacing the income tax with tariffs, funding the government through targeted trade revenue instead of shaking down everyday Americans. The goal is to totally eliminate the tax burden for anyone making less than $150,000 a year. And just think about that. That's not a tax cut, that's economic liberation. And that's why he named it Liberation Day.
From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? We don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government. Then in 1929, it all came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they had stayed with the tariff policy. It would have been a much different story. They tried to bring back tariffs to save our country, but it was gone. It was too late. Nothing could have been done. It took years and years to get out of that depression, far longer than even FDR had that office right over there for a long period of time. The ramp system, that's rather intricate, was built because of him, and every time you walk up, you think of him, and he did a great job in many ways, but it lasted long beyond his terms. But it's not too late. We're going to start being smart, and we're going to start being very wealthy again. We're going to be wealthy as a country because they've taken so much of our wealth away from us. We're not going to let that happen. We truly can be very wealthy. We can be so much wealthier than any country. It's not even believable, but we're getting smart.
The reason Trump called it Liberation Day is because if the tariff strategy actually works, regular Americans will no longer be tax slaves to a corrupt system that's bled them dry and given them very little in return. That's the outlook here, and it's quite the stark contrast from Democrats. And really, to put that into perspective, I have a little bit of a Freudian slip here, although it's not really a Freudian slip. This is just kind of the Democrat stance these days.
If it's not market manipulation, what is it? Who's benefiting? What billionaire just got richer? And all the while, there are not even any Republicans left in this hearing. They all left because they don't even want to defend this. But meanwhile, the speaker is rushing to the floor to pass a budget reconciliation to screw America by passing the biggest tax cut in history on the backs of the American people? WTF!
Yeah, according to Democrats, tax cuts are bad for the everyday American. Complete friggin' crackhead behavior. But that's what the Democrats are fighting for. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is applying a completely different approach. Just think about it. He wants liberation from a parasitic government that's bleeding the everyday American dry. No more IRS breathing down your neck. No more paying for endless wars that America shouldn't be involved in. No more watching your hard-earned paycheck getting siphoned off to fund useless government waste, DEI programs, and funding leftist NGOs and LGBT organizations abroad. No, instead, tax global corporations. Tax the foreign exporters who want to tap into the American markets. And yeah, sure, some of that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer, but at least you're paying on what you're consuming. You have the choice. Instead of having no choice and just seeing a good chunk of your hard-earned salary stripped away from you with no say into how that money's going to be spent. Only Congress has the authority to decide that. It sounds like a much better system. We're talking about big, bold moves here. Donald Trump is talking about totally realigning and changing the dynamic in global trade and totally redefining the tax code. It's kind of crazy if you think about it, and sure, it won't be easy. And look, the reality is he might not succeed. Eliminating income taxes for the majority of the country would mean trillions of dollars in lost revenue over the next decade. But just because it seems difficult or unlikely doesn't mean it's impossible. If the economy truly explodes, if enough trade deals are cut, if government spending can be streamlined and cut significantly through initiatives like DOGE, then the reality is it's actually possible. Theoretically, the math is there. With enough money coming in through tariffs, with enough growth in the private sector, and enough cut of government waste, the budget can be sent into a surplus, which would allow the tax burden to be pulled off the American lower and middle class. And so, like I said, Trump is trying to completely redefine the system, redefine the tax code, redefine global trade, and at the core of all of it, redefine what it means to live in a free country. You got to give it to him. He's swinging freaking big, and I mean big. He's not tiptoeing around the edges like every other president before him, engaging in photo op politics, engaging in sloganeering. He's going for a grand slam. And whether or not it fully works, you gotta respect the effort. You gotta respect the grind. Obama ran on hope and change, but he just gave you more of the same. Every politician seems to run on change and then they just implement the status quo. But Trump, he's cut from a different cloth. That's just the reality, and he's actually trying to change the game. And so things got a little bit shaky in the markets, and the leftist media wants you to panic and turn your back on Donald Trump, just ditch him. But I'm seeing the bigger picture here. It might work, it might not, but at the end of the day, I am fully committed to this thing. I'm locked in. I want to ride this thing to the end and see exactly where it goes, because clearly doing the same thing over and over again and expecting change is the definition of political insanity. Sure, the boat's rocking a little bit, but that's what happens when you have real change, not just the slogan. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.